So my name is Manuel Talavera, and I'm a professional development specialist with the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. So I do have a few housekeeping items before I go over the content of the presentation. The session is being recorded. We share them on our website, so on our YouTube page as well. Also have been communicating for a while now, so you can use the audio button to connect another way if you're not able to hear me. We also are tongue twisted there. We are also offering continuing education and professional development hours for this webinar. So my colleagues who are up in the panel will share more details with that once we get to that section. So for those who aren't familiar about ISAC, so ISAC, we're a state agency. We're the largest one-stop resource for financial aid information. And our mission is to provide Illinois students with information and assistance to help them make a more informed decision about life after high school. We also administer scholarships and grant programs to students, one of them being the Monetary Award Program, the MAP grant, which is one of the largest grant programs of its kind in the country. In our division of college access and outreach, we also provide professional development opportunities to any college access professional, whether at the middle school, high school, school district, community-based organization, really whatever level, in topics in financial aid and being a first-generation student and repayment programs, pretty much you name it, we have a topic on that. So a few things that I want to cover, some open issues for the 25-26 FAFSA, as well as some opportunities for you all to ask questions if you have any questions. We do ask that you use the Q&A. I'm being joined by my colleagues up on the panel. You'll see their names up there. They can answer any questions, as well as some resources that I have for you guys as well. So before I wanted to get into some of the open issues, I wanted to just some quick updates as to what's going on. So the 25-26 FAFSA will remain mostly consistent with 24-25 application, which we can all breathe a bit of sigh of relief, right? Because 24-25 was the year in which FAFSA simplification took place in the final form, I guess I should say. Since it was happening, some changes were already happening incrementally. And the Department of Education mentioned, because of the phased approach, we'll talk a little bit more about the beta testing phases, that the application shall launch by December 1, as scheduled. So we have just a couple more weeks. And talking a little bit about the phased approach. Now, this year, the Department of Education did something a little differently. Rather than just opening the application to everyone. We know, like last year when it opened, it was very finicky. The application was available at odd hours during the night and day, and it wasn't available. So the Department of Education did what's called the beta testing. So select institutions and students were invited to participate. And if they submitted their FAFSA during that stage, they were able to test, institutions were able to then test their systems internally. So the application opened up in October for a certain group of students within those phases. So beta phases, 4 phases. We are currently in beta phase 4. Things are going great. Some issues still popping up, but the workarounds are also being popped up, which I'll talk a little bit about as well. But beta phase has begun in the past few days, and it's increasing the number of students and families who are eligible to use to submit their application during the beta phase. I also want to mention that while the 25-26 FAFSA doesn't have a sort of screenshots on the web presentation or a test site available right now, they do have their prototype, which if you're interested, you can use that link on here, and or you can just Google FAFSA prototype. There's a password in it where you can input and see the application. Now for the open issues, I have a link on here where they list their 25-26 open issues as well as 24-25 issues that have been plaguing the application. So for anyone who is interested, they can see those. And just want to forewarn that it is a lot to keep up. Even someone like myself who is in this space and is surrounded by all the issues and the workarounds. So having a quick access to the link and being able to see that, and to be able to illustrate to their parents and their families, to students and their families, that if an issue does pop up and you seemingly are trying your absolute best to try and figure out what's going on, right? Because there have been issues with the application, glitches, mainframe systems, delivery systems, or vendor issues that the department has been plagued with. So it's helpful to know that to the student, hey, it's not you, it's the Department of Education. So we'll come back, we'll figure things out. That way it's very helpful for students so that they don't get bogged down by it or intimidated by it and just fall through the cracks and not enroll in college. So anyway, some common issues overall, especially when we look at the 24-25, is that the application, there were some glitches, and the same old kinds of pro tips are still around. For example, don't add space bars. When creating your FSA ID, you want to enter it exactly as it appears on your Social Security card. And if you're, for instance, with the student who they don't know how their information is inputted in the system because they have two middle names or two last names, they can, number one, always check their Social Security card. Or number two, they can check with Social Security Administration, and they can provide them with much more better information as to how their information is kind of laid out. Now, for students who had issues with FSA ID or parents without Social Security numbers had issues creating FSA ID, and they were calling in for Fed aid. There were long times for the call centers and individuals where they're able to answer their calls. There were delays in that, as well as information about contributors and FSA IDs and having to add their information, so the glitches with that. And even families who are required to enter their tax information manually even after granting consent. We've seen in some occasions where the checkbox for providing consent wasn't available, right? And that meant that the student and parents, they've had to manually fill out their tax information. And whenever a family does that, they open themselves up for verification. Now, if you use a direct data exchange and if it's available to the families to use, that is the preferred method because that eliminates the need for verification for income information. They can still get verified for other things, but for verification for income, that will significantly reduce that. And then we've also seen issues with parents without Social Security numbers. We know that now they have to create an FSA ID. That will still continue, and all those issues will still continue to exist. However, the Department of Education has mentioned that the attestation form, as things are getting out and parents are delayed in getting those submitted and processed, that will not negatively impact the student's eligibility for financial aid. So a little bit more about the attestation form. So for many parents, the TransUnion questions either have not worked, whether they haven't showed up, or the questions that were provided were all incorrect, or the responses were all incorrect. So if that's a situation that happens, the parent, it's a telltale sign that the parent will need to submit an attestation form, and will have to submit additional documentation with that form. So if you're working with the parent and you see a situation like that, some additional information will be required. And because of that, the attestation forms were widely delayed. And some families didn't have the necessary documentation available, or just reluctance to complete the application or the form because of the additional steps and barriers that were presented with it. We've also seen that there was a lot of confusion with case numbers, where parents were getting case numbers that weren't matching the VANVER numbers, and VANVER stands for manual verification. So you needed to get a VANVER case number. However, if you reach out to Federal Student Aid, you get a case number for that ticket that you reached out. That doesn't mean that that's the Manver case number. So a lot of families got the case number and thought, oh, that's the Manver case number. I'm going to input this in the application. And then want to verify. And the Department of Education wasn't following up with parents and students. The timeline was just messed up. So point is, when submitting an attestation form, you need that Manver case number. It's required in it. It's asked you to input that in the application. For the form itself is paper. It's moving online. We're waiting to hear additional details on that, but all that will move automatically. And what we receive now is if the parent is creating an FSA ID and they have to answer the TransUnion questions, or if the TransUnion questions don't populate or they're not able to answer the TransUnion questions, they will automatically receive an email with the attestation form letting them know they have to input or they have to complete this application and will include a Manver case number. So that has been happening, again, to streamline the process, to ensure that families are getting the required documentation in. And here's some best practices if you're experiencing some issues with students, parents who are, can create or don't have social security numbers and are creating an FSA ID. So even other families as well. FSA IDs, it's a great form of practice to have FSA ID workshops right now before the application opens up. And the reason so that you can get everything verified, and if there's anything else, additional information you need, there's still some time to get things in motion. Right. So if you're working with mixed status families and you have any concerns with the financial aid process, it's helpful just to be honest about the process. I let families know all the time that eligibility for financial aid is based off the student's eligibility status, not of the parents. I've seen students and heard of them from other states, not so much here in Illinois, where the state may have their own application, like how ISAC does for the alternative application for Illinois financial aid for eligible undocumented students. We had students who are submitting just the state application when they're eligible to complete the FAFSA form. And the same thing goes here, right? So if you're working with a student and their parents are undocumented, but the student was born here or the student is an eligible non-citizen, they should submit a FAFSA because that is the pathway that will provide them the most financial aid, because the alternative application for Illinois financial aid is just for eligibility for the MAP grant. Right? So what's helpful for you as a professional to just always keep track, right, of what's going on with the Department of Education and the updates they're providing, any workarounds, right, and particularly with students whose parents are undocumented or they have guardians or things of that nature. So let's go over some of the workarounds right now. So the first, and keep in mind, these are for students who have been invited to participate in the phased approach of the FAFSA launch for 25-26. And we have 2 rounds of open issues. One's for October 27th and one that's for last week, in November. So contributors with a pending Social Security match status are unable to accept a FAFSA invitation. They have to wait. The workaround is that they have to wait until the information has been verified by Social Security Administration before attempting to access the form. They are anticipating that to fix this issue in December of next month. And I'm already seeing some questions coming in, so yes, definitely please ask questions as you think about them. Students who select a freely associated state as their state of legal residence and then update, sorry, I can't talk right now, to a non-freely associated state are stuck in a loop. So ED, which is the Department of Education, has completed a data cleanup to remove transactions that were impacted by this issue and could not be completed. With this update, students who experienced this issue in the past should now be able to start a new application and submit their form. And SAI, which is the Student Aid Index, the third known issue, is not calculated due to missing family size. So family size is the updated version of household size, which is family size is what's on the tax forms. So the FAFSA is part of the FAFSA simplification is matching language used in the tax forms and on the FAFSA. But the workaround is the form did not properly collect the parent household size the parent should initiate a correction to input the family size information manually. Input there. They have to manually enter that information. Some additional known issues. So users are unable to submit a correction when their form has processed with a professional judgment. Users cannot submit a correction. Only the financial aid administrator can submit one for them. That is right now because of the phased approach of the launch for 25-26. And then students and their contributors are continuously looped to an assets page and able to submit a correction. Similar to what I just said earlier, users cannot submit a correction. Only the financial aid administrator can submit one for them. And non-Social Security number contributors with incorrect birthday are unable to change it. So they have to invalidate their current student aid .gov account and complete the process to create a new account without a Social Security number. And those are for individuals without a Social Security number. And lastly, from the 15th of last week, currently when a parent or independent student is married and file their taxes jointly with their current spouse, they are being required to invite their spouse to participate in the form, even though the spouse is not a required contributor. So users will need to add their spouse's information to continue through the form. However, the spouse will not be required to create a studentaid.gov account, accept the invitation, or complete the application. So that status is open. So that's the current workaround for that one. And as the application launches December 1, and there's an issue that you are having, whether there are glitches, or we have even seen situations in which we tell parents and students all the time not to hit the back button, but in the application last year, that was one of the only ways we can get the application to move forward because it was stuck on the submit button. But if there are any issues you're experiencing, we ask that you submit a complaint, right? The complaint is not to say, oh, this application is longer or shorter, but to really include information that can really help the experience for other students and families. So if you are also seeing lots of trends, right, let us know too. That way we can report them up to our partners at NCAN, NASFA, LASFA, and so our local and national organizations as well. And that way they can, let the Department of Education know, because they may or may not be fully aware, right, of some of the issues that are plaguing systems, because it could maybe be more regional based rather than national. I'm going to go over some FAQs. Just going to quickly hop into see what questions we got so far. Yeah. With the attestation form, which I'm not in the Q&A section yet, so I will hold off on that. I saw the Q&A, same thing about Q&A. Anyway, but just some quick highlights. If you didn't already kind of understand that, everyone needs an FSA ID, right? Now, if you're working with a student and their family, they are filed taxes married jointly, and they're still together, right? They only need one FSA ID, right? You don't need to create both. Now, contributors without a Social Security number, I've highlighted all of the steps on here. We've talked a little bit about this already. We know that they have to complete an attestation form. They need their man verification number. They need to answer those TransUnion questions. So the only way to validate their identity is either they answer the TransUnion questions or submit an attestation form, right? So for parents who are able to successfully answer TransUnion questions, they don't need to worry about the attestation form, right? But for those that do, they're gonna get that email letting them know those additional next steps. And once they complete their documentation, they have their proof of identity, which is either their driver's license, state or city ID card, a foreign passport. They submit the documentation with the application, the attestation form, to ID verification at ed.gov. So if my family owns a business and or investment firm, do I need to report it? So yes, anytime we're going with the family and we need to report asset information or investment information, they need to report it. So if all businesses and investments owned by the student family must report on the FAFSA. And you have to report the net worth. The net worth is the current value minus the debt owed. That gives you the net worth. So when will Gift Assistance Program's Gap Access Portal be available for counselors to view who has completed a financial aid application in 24-25 and 25-26? So 24-25 Gap Access is fully functional. It's up and running. Now for 25-26, this also includes our financial aid application completion initiative tool. That's going to be up and running once the FAFSA opens up for all the students. So that's going to be up and running in December. So we hope to have everything ready to go. We're ready. We're just waiting on the Department of Education to start releasing FAFSAs for students to complete them. Right? But right now, 25-26, we're waiting until the launch date for the FAFSA. So my parents created their FSA ID, they logged into the FAFSA, they gave consent for the direct data exchange, but we're still prompted to enter their tax data. Why is that? Maybe because they created their FSA ID on the same day they completed their application. Now, you can still do that. However, there could be some glitches with that. So we tell families to wait a few days until their FSA ID is verified. Once it gets verified, they shouldn't experience any issues. Now, if it does, what can happen sometimes is the direct data exchange system could be going through updates internally. And if something like that happens, then the student should still wait, but they can always still submit the application by manually entering their information. And they can always go back in and provide consent once that checkbox is available for them. And that's going to override the manually entered information. But if the family filed a foreign tax return or their 2022 filing status doesn't reflect their current personal circumstances, so maybe today they're married, but in 2022 when they filed their tax information they were divorced, or vice versa, they will have to manually enter tax information. Now, what are my contributors consenting when they provide their information? And FAFSA simplification came under two acts. Part of it was the Future Act and the other was the FAFSA Simplification Act. And the direct data exchange came from the Future Act, which required all students and contributors to provide information at consent on the application to have their federal tax information, their FTI, transferred directly onto the FAFSA form from the IRS. This is replacing the direct data exchange where you have to log in with your FSID, get that information. So all this is happening automatically from the IRS through the partnership the Department of Education has with the IRS. So it allows them to sort of facilitate and grab that information on your behalf. Now, the information that gets pulled, parents and students, really no one can see that other than the financial aid administrator, and that is developed by design, so that can protect the identity of the taxpayer. And even if students or contributors don't have a social security number, or are not required to file taxes, or they file outside, they would still need to provide consent. And if you have an individual who wasn't required to file taxes, or they didn't, right, the Department of Education is getting basically verification of non-filing information from the IRS. Now, that doesn't indicate whether they were required to file or not. It just indicates that the IRS doesn't have a tax return on file. But in the past, students and parents had to get those. Right now, they're coming automatically from the IRS. However, the financial aid administrator, if parents are inputting manual tax information, inputted that they passed the filing threshold, but they didn't file, they're going to get told to file. Now, I also wanted to highlight some interpretation improvements. So the FAFSA is available in English and Spanish. And if a family needs assistance in completing the FAFSA in English or Spanish, they can reach out to 1-800-4-FED-AID or the Federal Student Information Center, ISAC, for help. Now, there's also additional languages and interpretations available in over 60 plus languages. And so as students and parents who are working through, whether it's FSAIDs or the FAFSAs, if they need more assistance, they can visit the interpretation support page from the Department of Education. They can find this in studentaid.gov. I provided a link on here where families can access that information and get assistance in the language that they need. Next, I'm going to look over some of the Q&A. So if you have any questions too, use this time to ask any questions that you may have. And I'm not sure how everyone joined. I'm just going to repeat some of the questions that were asked earlier. Okay. Just kept getting bounced back and forth from WebEx. So attestation forms, are there any concerns given the new administration in sending out information for parents without a Social Security number? Keep in mind, the same rules will apply for privacy and security of the information. All that is safeguarded regardless of who's in charge. And there's, laws in place for that to protect the individual's identity. Do you have a link with the page that provides the updates? Thank you, Anna, for providing that link. And Federal Student Aid Partner website, it's a great resource where you can go through synchronous trainings, review the 2025-26 FAFSA release roadmap, where you can see other information that's released to students and their families. And can go from there, but we are, and the last is the FAFSA, pardon me. Excuse me, recovering from a cold. But when will the FAFSA opt-out form be available? In December, when the FAFSA opens. That is a hope is to have everything ready. The alternative application, the limited waiver, not the limited waiver, the FAFSA opt-out form. I'm having flashbacks of other initiatives that we were working through, which are popping up in my head right now. But we're hoping to have everything launched and ready to go in December. Any other additional questions? Please use the Q&A as a sort of attendees time to add any questions. We can also should have reactions available. So if you wanted to verbally ask your questions, I can unmute you if that's your preference. Okay, so with that, I'll go over some resources. So the first thing I want to go over is the Create Your StudentAid.gov account page. So it's a new resource that explains families and partners what they need to know about creating their FSAID account. There's also pro tips for completing the FAFSA form. This is all from the Department of Education, by the way. So they have updated tips and preparing students and families to fill out the FAFSA form. Of course, they can always reach out to the core, and we can provide them with free assistance. there's the Federal Student Aid Estimator, which helps provide an estimate to the 25-26 Student Aid Index, as well as the Federal Pell Grant eligibility. So this is replacing the Pell Grant Estimator tool that used to exist. And the Parent Wizard tool is still in the application, but they pulled it out separately. Now they have its own separate resource. So parents or students can have their parents complete it before getting into the application. And the Parent Wizard tool is a helpful tool if you have students whose parents are divorced or separated, and the student doesn't know which parent needs the information on the FAFSA. So this will kind of give them an idea about which parent they need to invite as part of the contributor form. And lastly, they have YouTube videos and FAFSA videos. They're quick, short videos that describe and break down the financial application process for the FAFSA on there. Yes. Getting that now. So, Andrea, I see your question. So, if you send us an email to our outreach training inbox, we'll get you out that presentation. So, we're also here to help. So, we have our new number where you can text us your questions and we will reach out. We have live people that are going to reach out to you. We'll also use this platform to send out any additional information that we think is pertinent to financial aid, like maybe some updates and things like that, to keep you all up to date with any information that you may need. We also have our PACE module training. Our second part is happening in Carbondale. That's going to be December 6th. You can always go on our website at isac.org/PD and look at our training and workshops calendar to see what we have planned for the rest of the year. We have a calendar up already. And we also have our free FAFSA communication toolkit where we have tons of different resources that you can use and edit. There are blank PDFs and flyers that you can use at your school to help with getting the word out at your school. We also have our First Generation Scholars Network, so all the services that we offer here are free, no cost. We have additional resources for students who identify as being first in their family to go to college. We also have core members and provide additional support. We're planning a symposium date pretty soon, so we'll have all that up and ready soon for everyone. Also, let me go ahead and in the chat, but we also have our CE and PD request available too. So if you need, I'm just going to go back to that slide. I see your questions out there. Here we go. So that number is 847 for ISAC 250-2384 for ISAC's connection. So okay. So that does it for all the information that we have for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording.